Hi, my name is Dr. Marc Reynolds, and I'm a voice teacher, performance coach, and stage director. Today I'm going to be reviewing Dimash's performance of Love is Like a Dream. The question of the day: what is it that you see in a performer, or even a real life person for that matter, that makes you believe that they really mean what they're saying and that they're sincere and genuine about it? On the flip side, what is it that gives away the lie? Where do you look? Here we go.
Я в глаза твои, как в зеркало смотрюсь. Отражение потерять свое боюсь. Не хочу, чтоб я лишь гостем был в сумраке ночей и в судьбе твоей. Я люблю тебя, как любят в жизни раз. Словно солнце в мире не было до нас. От забот и мелких ссор я тебя увел, и ключи от счастья для тебя нашел, для тебя нашел. Любовь, похожая на сон, сердец хрустальных перезвон. Твое волшебное люблю я тихим эхом повторю. Любовь, похожая на сон, счастливым сделала мой дом. Но вопреки законам сна, пускай не кончится она. Я прощаю одиночество и грусть. Ты сказала в них: я больше не вернусь. Так бывает только в сладком сне, но любовь у нас наяву сейчас. Мне в глазах твоих себя не потерять. До разлуки нам любовь не разменять. И немыслимой ценой, и своей мечтой заслужил я это счастье быть с тобой, быть всегда с тобой. Любовь, похожая на сон, сердец хрустальных перезвон. Твое волшебное люблю я тихим эхом повторю. Любовь, похожая на сон, счастливым сделала мой дом. Но
Wow. Let me put on my fan hat for a second here and talk about just a few quick things that were just awesome and that I loved a lot. First of all was his costume, or what he was wearing, I guess, if it makes you uncomfortable to call it a costume, was awesome. Loved the purple velvet suit, really high status, fun, relaxed, but calms down the white in his shirt and puts the focus on his face in a really great way. Lots of other practical things that are going on with that too that are really exciting to watch. I loved how in past videos we've talked about spectacle, and how Dimash is really huge on spectacle and kind of showing us all these vocal fireworks. I love how at the beginning, almost the entire song is just so intimate.
Я в глаза твои, как в зеркало смотрюсь. Отражение потерять свое боюсь. Не хочу, чтоб я лишь гостем был в сумраке ночей и в судьбе твоей.
He's not showing any vocal fireworks. It's not about spectacle. It's about believability, about authenticity, about him really being vulnerable with the audience. And to me, as a stage director and as a performance coach, that's really one of the biggest challenges on stage, is to let yourself be vulnerable. Being big, hamming it up, being showing all these kinds of vocal fireworks and big dramatic gestures, that's not near as hard as being vulnerable and honest, true, and authentic. Then, of course, at the end, we get the vocal fireworks and the fun and the drama that we associate with Dimash that we love, which is awesome, and it's always fun to see. And those two back-to-back show contrast and makes it even more fun. So that was really cool to see. The other thing that I really enjoyed watching this time, in my video of Love of Tired Swans, I commented on the pianist and how he just looked like he didn't care and wasn't engaged. A bunch of viewers commented about his prestige in Russia and about how Russians don't necessarily show their emotions in an extroverted way, and that they were in the Kremlin. It was a high intensity situation. When that was brought to my attention, I went back and watched the video, and I honestly changed my mind. What I saw was restraint, was that he was probably not as expressive as he might usually be, because he's in the Kremlin and it might be a more strained or stressful environment, or maybe just more formal. But as I was watching the little micro gestures, the little facial gestures he was using, what I saw more was that he was reacting and that he was actively listening more than anything else. So when I'm watching this, and he's obviously much more relaxed and comfortable, he's at the piano and a little more expressive, it's a little easier for me to see that, yeah, he actually was, and here is all about actively listening to what Dimash is doing and trying to react and being 100% in that performance. So part of it is just a cultural difference and not being sensitive to what I was really seeing in his body language in that context. But part of it is here, he's a little freer to express those emotions and to be relaxed and comfortable. And as we're watching this, I love watching him at the piano with these thoughts in mind and seeing the little nuance and detail that's going in his face. One of the signs of a really talented coach, pianist, and composer is their ability to actively listen to what's going on and then respond in real time. They are listening so completely, so intently. That lets them respond with whatever creative outlet they have, whether that's their body language, their composition, their writing, they're playing at the piano, and it makes for a really, really compelling collaborative performance here. So that was also really exciting to see. Comment down below. I'd love to hear what you loved about this performance. Thank you to all the people who commented on other videos suggesting that I do this one right away. This is probably one of my favorites so far. It gave me the tingles. and I really loved it. There are three things I want to talk about today. First, I want to talk about what he's doing with his sound to make it sound intimate, soft, and like he's talking to a lover. Two is I want to talk about what he's doing with his hands. And third, I want to talk about what he's doing with his eyes. First, how is he getting this soft, intimate sound? This sound that brings us in, that makes it seem like he's talking in our ear? Well, there's a few things. One is he's pulling that placement way back. He's not getting that forward, pingy, bright, buzzy sound up here in his sinuses. He's also making it aspirate, which means the vocal folds don't have a ton of pressure pulling them together, and the quantity of air is quite a bit, but the velocity of the air coming through the vocal folds is relatively little, which results in this kind of aspirate, soft, whispery sound.
Я прощаю одиночество и грусть. Ты сказала в них, я больше не вернусь. Так бывает только в сладком сне, но любовь у нас наяву сейчас.
What he does to make it so the sound is still consistent, and so in this big audience that they can still hear him, and that the sound engineer in the back can really capture the sound that needs to be done for both the video and the audience, is he's getting his mouth right on that mic. That also lets him get these really soft, whispery type sounds. That also lets him get these soft, whispery type sounds that engages the audience in this intimate way. It helps that he's not moving a lot here, especially at the beginning. He's sitting there. That also helps it feel comfortable and relaxed and less formal. The other thing he's doing vocally here that gets this softer, lighter sound is that he's using his lips and mouth in a little more muted way, in a way that isn't quite as articulate as usual. Is that a problem? No. Again, he's got this mic right up against his mouth, so he's relying on it to do its work to help convey the words that he's saying so that he doesn't have to be overly articulate. You'll notice if I started getting overly articulate, it starts sounding formal and less intimate and relaxed. Second thing we wanted to talk about is what is he doing with his hands? It's been really interesting hearing these comments from my past videos. One of the past videos, I talked about the tension of his hand around that mic, that I was seeing as a possible sign of extraneous tension, and some other tension that I was seeing in his hands that seemed like they're pretty rigid and firm. The response from a lot of the fans out there was that his hand thing is a thing, that he's gripping this mic because of emotion, that these hands are getting tight because of emotion. Great. So what that made me do is go back and watch, and especially as I'm watching here, does that mean that there isn't tension involved? No, there's always tension involved in our body, no matter what kind of performance we're doing. If there was no tension, we would be a puddle on the ground. So the real question is it tension that is adding to the performance or detracting? Is it tension that's hurting the voice or facilitating it? Is it in balance? Well, as I'm watching here, the moments that I'm seeing tension in his hands, and there are some really clear clips here, like this. And this. Where there is tension, not just in his mic hand, but in his offhand. what makes it so I believe it, so that I'm not seeing it as extraneous tension, is that it's not there all the time. And it's not there at specific moments. It is tied to what I'm seeing and hearing emotionally. Is that always the case 100% of the time? I don't know, because we're watching videos and the video isn't looking at his hands all the time. But from what I'm seeing here, at least in this video, is it seems to be tied with the character, with what he's trying to express, and with what's going on. That makes it so that we read it as emotional, and we read it as a form of communication and not a form of stress or performance anxiety tension. That's awesome. Love it. Does he display some tension into his hand around this mic? That's a good question. I'm not sure. It might just be him really having a firm hold on that mic. It might be him displacing it. But if that tension stays just in this mic hand and doesn't travel up his arm, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? If he's going to carry tension and feel that connection with his body somewhere, just in his hand here at the mic is not a bad place for it to be. It makes it so he's not going to drop the mic if nothing else. And again, if it doesn't travel up his arm and shoulder and neck, it's not going to cause problems with his voice. And it's going to read like it does for many of the viewers that commented on previous videos, like he's emotionally engaged, like he means what he's saying. So cool. Love it. Now, the other thing that we're seeing with his hands are these other movements that he is doing. There's two ways to look at them, and I love how so many of the fans talk about how Dimash himself talks about his talking hands and what he's doing with his hands and how beautiful his hand movements are. To me, that's great. If you love it, that's awesome. I enjoy what I'm seeing here too, but in hand gestures in general, if they aren't connected with what's being said or what the music is trying to communicate or the emotion, they aren't believable, they become distracting to me. Distracting because reality is I don't want to spend my time focusing on their hands. I want to be listening to their voice. I want to be watching their face for its reactions. And then I want my peripheral vision to see what's going on with the hands and see what's happening there. If all of a sudden they're doing a ton with their hands that doesn't match everything else, or it takes attention away from their face for an extended period of time, then I don't think that the hand gestures are serving their performance. Unless it's a dance-oriented performance, which is usually not the case with Dimash's performance. Does that mean they can't be stylized? You can't move them in a unique way? No, especially in other performances where he's wearing more dramatic, more stylized costumes. He's presenting it in a more stylized way where it's not supposed to be super realistic, naturalistic, like we were just meeting him on the street. In this performance, though, he's presenting himself in a way where we feel like we could have just met him on the street, be talking to him in a cafe or something. What I love here is that his hands are coming along for the ride. They're giving that same message. They're really naturalistic. Are they still contouring to the phrase, meaning that he's letting them stretch over a whole phrase? Yes, but I'm not seeing tension in them when the emotion is not calling for attention. They're nice and relaxed. It looks just like a normal person talking through a phrase where they're stretching it out a little bit. So, in context of watching more of his videos, I'm seeing that he's really conscious of what he's doing with his hands. And I would imagine it's very, very deliberate what he's doing with his hands. Is he human? Could he make mistakes? I think the temptation is to say no. He's almost at godlike status where it seems like there is never an imperfection with what he's doing. I don't think that's fair. I think he's human, and to not allow some error or something that isn't technically perfect is a mistake. And frankly, the majority of what we're seeing is not objective. It's subjective. It's not, is it right or wrong? It's, what is it communicating to each individual person? So is perfect even an option? No, because there are so many options. There are so many people out there with different things that they like, that makes them feel or think certain things, that there's no way to please everybody. But what I'm seeing here with his hands is that they are responding and reacting in a natural way, in a way that we would see if we're just talking to a normal person. so that there's just more tension in the hand when there's an emotion that calls for that tension. Or when it relaxes a little bit, we see release in these hands and they're more natural and they're more comfortable and free to move. And the other huge thing that we're seeing here with his hands is even when they get tense, the hand gesture doesn't freeze and stop in place. It keeps moving a little bit. That helps us believe it as well. As soon as that gesture freezes and anything that you're doing with your hands, if it stops and holds a position, that's a sign that there's something wrong usually. Not just that he has a strong emotion, but that there's a stressor, there's a fight or flight response going on there. If you're watching your own videos and you're watching your own performances and you see moments where all of a sudden you have this freeze moment, I would be careful and make sure that that is really what you intend, because it's a really strong subconscious cue to your audience that something stressful happened, that your mind or body is sensing some kind of impending danger or doom. Finally, the third thing we want to talk about here with Dimash is what he's doing with his eyes. You'll notice in these intimate moments, he is relaxed around these eyes. They're slightly closed. They're not super wide open. Again, as if he's talking to someone right here, like he's not having to emote across a room or a whole entire theater. He knows that there's a video camera in his face. This audience is sensing his body language. One of the arguments is, well, the audience in the back isn't going to see what's going on with his eyes. Why does it matter? Well, it matters because there's a lot of little micro gestures that go along with what our eyes are doing all the way around our face, that an audience in the back, even though consciously they might not be able to figure out what's going on and react to it, that subconsciously they will. Again, today's audiences are so visually intelligent. They're so visually adept and educated that they pick up on micro gestures so quickly on a subconscious level that to ignore it is not a good idea. And he doesn't ignore it here. What we're also seeing with what he's doing with his eyes is that they're anticipating the phrase coming up. In other videos, we've talked about shifting our eyes on the last note or syllable. This is the magic tool for performers everywhere. And this counts for videography as well. If the focal point shifts on the last note or syllable of the music, not that it has to complete the entire shift and go bump, but that it starts to shift on that last note or syllable and starting to discover and show us the new idea, then we believe it, we buy it, because it's part of the natural behavior. It's part of natural body language and what's going on.
Любовь похожая на сон.
So that's part of it. The other part of what he's doing is these eyes, the muscles around his eyes that are responding, that are showing us things, are not static. They aren't just holding a position.
Пускай не кончится.
And his eyes are engaged even a little bit further ahead of his face. He's not necessarily inside his head. And they're shifting around. They're free. They're malleable to move. They aren't just locked in and zeroed in one place. He's not shifting them all over the place. That's not what we want either. Again, we want one eye shift per musical phrase. If it's more than that, subconsciously it feels like too much. It feels like a lie that there's too many thoughts per spoken words. So we start to subconsciously disbelieve it. Here, he does a really excellent job at letting his eyes shift with the phrases of the music. which leads us to our question of the day, which is, what is it that makes someone believable? Or what is it that gives away the lie? Well, imagine that someone just told you something shocking and their back is turned towards you. What's the first thing you're probably going to do? You're probably either going to walk around to a position where you can look at their eyes and see what's going on, or look at them and wait until they turn and look at you, or ask them a question that makes them turn and look at you. Do you really mean that? And they'll turn and look at you, because we got to look at the eyes to really know what's going on, if something's true or not. So when you're watching Dimash here, the big question that I'm asking is, do I believe him? Do I believe his eyes? Or is there something in his eyes that give away the lie? And what I mean give away the lie as a performer, the lie is that he's sitting there on a stool with a microphone, piano, and a whole audience watching him. What he has to convince us of is that that is not the case. That he's a real person. They're talking to a very specific individual in a very intimate, private situation, or at least in some other world other than in this theater with a spotlight on him. Otherwise, we wouldn't be as engaged. So, what gives away a lie in that situation is first and foremost what their face is doing. Second of all is what's going on with the body and the body language. Like we talked about before, are there any moments where they freeze? Are there any moments that don't match body language with music with what they're saying? There's a lot of other tells too that we look for, but in general here, as we're watching Dimash, I think he does an excellent job of helping us to believe that he really means what he's saying. And the best way to do that as a performer is to believe that this imaginary world that's in his mind, that he's built around him, is real. Do I think that he is mentally in this theater with all these people watching him in a spotlight? I don't. I think as a performer, if you were to be able to sit down and talk with him and say, what were you really thinking about in this moment? I think he'd be thinking about a specific situation, whether it's real or imaginary, where he was really saying these words with the emotion that the music calls for. Are there times when he might be thinking about counting or rhythm or the high note coming up or transition or something worked on? Maybe, but I think that would probably be back in his mind somewhere. Because if it did come to the forefront of his mind, we would see it. We'd see it somewhere in his mind. Even if he had practiced the muscle memory and got it perfect all the way around, we'd see a little bit of a tell. So back with my fan hat on after taking my teacher hat off, one of the things that I really love seeing here as I'm watching more and more of his work is the progress. That even though he's having tremendous success, he doesn't seem to just give up, give in, and do what he always does. I'm seeing in very subtle ways too that he continues to refine his art and make it better, make it more believable, make it more clear, give us more variety, more authenticity, and become more and more genuine and vulnerable on stage. To me, that says a lot about the integrity of the performer and how hard they're continuing to work and learn and strive. To me, that's the whole point of being a performer, of working in the performing arts. It isn't just to create this product that audiences can enjoy and love, but it's a process of growth, discovery, and searching for truth that a performer goes through as they're rehearsing and practicing and refining their craft and technique, that then the audience gets to enjoy when the singer gets up to perform. If the product becomes more important than the process, then it's just way too easy for the progression, for the improvement to go flatline and to not keep increasing. And that's not what I'm seeing here with Dimash. I'm seeing that he continues to keep improving as a performer, becoming much more mature, nuanced, consistent, and expressive in wonderful new ways. If you want a voice lesson, an acting coaching, to talk with someone through your ideas, or even if you want to figure out how to deliver your performance in whatever style it might be, whether you're a businessman going to a conference or a poet reading your works. Reach out to me, book a time with me at mrperformingartstudio.com. I look forward to working with you online.